Good day. Welcome to the Cory Morgan Show. This is our last one before July into the summer. I'm liking it. The political parties, of course, are all on their summer holidays now, but the news doesn't stop. Lots to cover, lots to go on about, lots to rant about, even if the legislatures aren't sitting. The show is live, as we can see. I see No Sense Left and E-Sharp checking in already. Use that comment scroll. Send things my way, ideas, notions, comments. Debate with each other. Just try to stay somewhat civil with each other anyways. So I'm going to have Mike Thomas on in a little while. He's a Western Standard columnist. You guys should be familiar with him. He writes on real estate, some business stuff, and a lot of civic issues. And we're going to be hearing a lot from Mike as it's an election year coming up in the municipal world. There's always some kind of election or another going on, and Mike's stuff is going to be very important in these months to come. As well, I'll be checking in with Dave. He's been a hard one to catch lately, it seems. He's bouncing around all over the place, but I've got him in for a news check-in. But I got to go off on a rant before that starts. Something else people were watching probably saw. There was a number of by-elections the other day in Alberta, 3 of them. Now, Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills, for those not as familiar with it, it's arguably the constituency with the strongest support for Western independence in Canada. In 1982, it became the first constituency to elect an overt independence candidate when they selected Gord Kessler as an MLA in a by-election. It's a rural constituency with a strong conservative leaning base. If there's anywhere that an independence candidate would do well in Western Canada, it's that constituency. So in a by-election this week, Alberta Republican Party leader Cam Davies was solidly trounced in Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills, garnering an embarrassing 17.7% support. Even the NDP beat them. The movement for Western independence, it's been enjoying a surge of support since Eastern Canada rewarded the Liberals with a larger government last April. Polls have indicated, they're all over, but around 30% of Albertans are looking at considering a vote for independence if they get the opportunity to do so in a referendum. The lackluster electoral showing from the Republican Party of Alberta just dumped a cold bucket of water on the independence movement, just as the political doldrums of summer are about to hit. With that support sitting at around 30% in the province, it's likely closer to 50% or more in a constituency like Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills. Being in a by-election as well offered independent supporters an opportunity to send a message by voting for an independence candidate without risking unseating the government. It was the best electoral opportunity for an independence candidate seen in an Alberta election since the 1980s. So why did the Republican Party fare so poorly? Well, there's a few reasons. To begin with, they named themselves the Republican Party. Why embrace a distinctively American brand in an Albertan party? Independent supporters want to celebrate and build Alberta and its identity. We're not looking to dissolve into a larger one south of the border. The Republican moniker divides an already fragile support base. Some independent supporters like the idea of joining the U.S., while some have no use for it. That prevented independent supporters from coalescing around one party. The party's self-appointed leader, Cam Davies, has a checkered past in Alberta politics. He was neck deep in the now infamous kamikaze leadership campaign debacle when Jason Kenney won the UCP leadership. Davies threw others involved in the affair under the bus and found himself fined by Elections Alberta for his misdeeds. His history doesn't exactly exude trustworthiness, and his personal presentation has been off-putting for many people. He just doesn't rub folks the right way. The campaign also seemed to be more focused on a personal vendetta against Daniel Smith and the UCP rather than the merits of Alberta independence. Many Alberta independent supporters don't have a problem with Smith and weren't drawn in by the constant sniping from Cam and the Republicans. The party itself was transformed from the morbid Buffalo Party only a few months ago, yet somehow garnered an astonishing amount of funds in a short time. That sets off alarm bells for many people. It'd be interesting to see how the financials withstand the inevitable audits to come. And having no established base of support yet, but having an oddly full bank account, the Republican Party spent heavily on advertising and had what appeared to be paid groups of door knockers dropped into constituencies rather than organic volunteers like other parties have. That didn't resonate well with voters at the doors, and the election results proved that out. The party also branded itself in liberal red, and their campaign signs were almost indistinguishable at a glance from federal liberal signs seen only a few months ago. Embracing the brand appearance of the most loathed party in the province demonstrates either utter strategic ineptitude or a penchant for electoral self-destruction. The campaign really was so bad, it made people wonder if it wasn't being thrown on purpose. The party had also gotten a hold of phone numbers and email lists for people, and they were auto-dialing the cell phones of Albertans, an annoyance tactic that couldn't have helped them. And now they also ran in the other 2 Edmonton by-elections being held. There was no expectation they would do well there, but they still managed to underwhelm with 3.6% support in one of them, and it's a ghastly 0.7% support in the other. The only term to describe that sort of electoral showing in spite of all the spending is pathetic. Voters didn't reject the concept of independence in the by-elections. They rejected Cam Davies and his weird little party. Unfortunately, Federalists are using the defeat of Davies as a barometer of Alberta's support for independence. Whether independent supporters like it or not, Davies became the face of the movement for a short time, and he served it poorly. With a referendum on independence likely to be held within a year, independent supporters just had a tough job made even tougher by the Alberta Republicans. Well, let's just hope that a lesson was learned. With a referendum campaign, a party isn't needed. In fact, as we saw with Davies' efforts, the parties actually can make things worse. Independent supporters must coalesce around advocacy groups and act individually to build the base for winning a referendum vote. They can't afford to waste time and money on independence parties that only divide the movement and fail. Perhaps the Republicans provide an example of the futility of a party approach early enough to have taught the lesson in time to recover from it. Now let's just hope they go away so the real independence movement can get to work, because they got a lot to do. All right. Well, that's what's got me going. Let's see what else is going on there. Hey, Dave.
Not a member of the Cam Davies fan club, I take it.
No, he's a weasel.
A weasel?
Weasel.
Weasel.
I know there's no shortage of those in the political world, but he stands out.
So, quick checklist. You're a best-selling author?
Yeah.
A award-winning beekeeper?
Somewhat. I got that third place ribbon at the Millerville Fair.
That's an award. You won it.
Yeah.
And now you're expanding your business empire, I see. You're going into the chapstick business.
Chapstick. So yes, beeswax lip balms I'm making. Well, I had all that beeswax built up. What are you supposed to do with it? A few candles, I guess. But no, look at those Burt's Bees things. They're like $7 for a tube.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're trying that. So I made a mess of wax and everything all over the counter at home, and Jane's pissed off at it.
So how much are you going to be selling yours for?
Figured it out yet? We'll let the market decide. I think a lot of it's just gonna be gifts for Airbnb guests or whatnot.
Colleagues. Maybe I get chat lips.
I could bring some by for sure.
There you go. Just sell it at the end of your driveway during the summer, right?
Quality control. Anyways, I'm not sure how many of Duke's hairs managed to get into the mix while I was making.
Sell them to the cyclists as they pass by, because they the sun, right?
True enough. And we got no shortage of cyclists.
Exactly.
So. Have to chap butts on them.
Anyways, I wish you good luck.
Oh, thanks.
Good luck.
I keep busy.
You do. You do. You're like the world's most interesting guy. Lots of good stuff on the website this morning, if I do say so myself. Alberta Energy Regulators released their yearly report on how energy is doing in Alberta. And as you might expect, we're booming. Record production, record money, whether it's helium or lithium or hydrogen or bitumen, whatever it is, we're getting it out of the ground and we're selling it. So that's all good.
I read that story in the Standard. I mean, our natural gas reserve numbers are actually going up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is something interesting for people, not familiar with the oil field. I mean, yes, we're producing, but as we find and prove more resources, the amount's actually getting larger.
Yeah, and we went from 15th in the world for LNG supply to 9th.
Yeah.
So, and we still only have that one port to export it. So imagine what we could do if we actually got some stuff built.
Let's imagine.
Good story out of Ottawa today. There used to be a trade grant for men and women who were thinking about getting into the trades. And if you identified as a woman, you got double the amount of money, because they were trying to attract more women to the trades. But all they took as whatever sex you were going for was just self-identification.
Well, of course. I mean, we can't question somebody.
No. So if you're thinking, hey, a woman gets double, I think I'll just identify as a woman today and click that box. So apparently lots of people have been ripping off the government that way, gender benders.
Who would have seen that coming?
Yeah. High school teacher in Edmonton by the name of Jimmy Bueno has been charged with a whole bunch of child sex offenses. And as the cops descended on the school to arrest him, they found he's fled the country.
No bueno.
So no bueno. So he's, hopefully in a country where we can extradite him. Interesting energy type story. Province is spending $5 million to build a direct air carbon capture, where this thing will just sit in a field in Innisfail and suck carbon dioxide out of the air. Sounds interesting if it works.
Interesting. Where are they going to put it?
Somewhere near Innisfail in the field.
Well, I meant the carbon.
Oh, then they're going to take it wherever they bury it underground. They're going to.
We could pipeline it to Quebec.
Yeah, exactly. Set up a big fan at the Quebec border, blowing it that way. And the Labor Board, as the Federal Labor Board, has upheld a firing of a employment insurance operator who was bitching about Black Lives Matter and saying stuff like, when do white people get their own day? And saying what you said, the Kamloops school thing was a hoax. And
I'm not so big on the White Lives Matter day. That's kind of self-evident, but yeah.
So anyways, the board said that that wasn't creating a very good work atmosphere, and they fired him. Or I think it was.
It's one of those difficult areas. I mean, you got a public presentation of a person or, reflection on the place, but at the same time is political correctness overriding the ability of somebody to speak.
Yeah, thank goodness we don't have an HR department.
No, well, the political correctness isn't really a problem around here typically, as long as the mics aren't hot.
Exactly.
All right. That's all you got today.
That's it, man. Isn't that enough?
As we're coming into July. No, as you said, the site is busy. The news doesn't stop.
It doesn't, sadly.
Right on.
Just a slow day would be acceptable.
Well, I mean, you've been bouncing around traveling. You were in Banff for the G7, living in luxury. You were eating steaks in Israel a little while ago.
Living in luxury.
Oh, that's Banff.
They made us walk down the mountain because they wouldn't let us park in at the Banff Center. We had to walk down the mountain.
People pay a lot of money to be able to go up and walk down those mountains.
I don't. I'm not one of them, though.
Okay. Well, I'll let you get back to your desk and recover from the hiking, and appreciate the updates, Dave.
You bet, Cory.
Right on. Thanks. That is our news editor, Dave Naylor. And yes, lots of stuff going up there. It's a busy site. We can see it looks like a new face behind me on the screen there, making his premiere appearance as well in the newsroom. That nice thing with the literal glass wall behind us here at the Western Standard. Look, the reason we've got new reporters, the reason Dave's busily trying to keep all those stories up and running is because you guys have been subscribing. So be sure to get on there, westernstandard.news/subscription. We don't take those tax dollars. We're independent. We answer to you. $10 a month, $100 for a year. Guys, if you've already subscribed, we really do appreciate it. And if you haven't yet, get on there. It's just like a newspaper subscription and helps cover things. So let's have a look at things through the comment scroll. What's going on out there? E Sharp checking in from Saskatchewan. Perry Dorsey saying the fact that they went on a summer holiday tells you how little they care about Canadians and how small that crisis to the yellow man to the south. Well, he's more orange, I think, but all the same, he's all smoking mirrors and BS from the Liberals. Though, to be fair, a little bit fair, and I beat on politicians regularly. That's part of what I do. We do point out that it's a holiday over summer because the legislatures aren't sitting. But most of them are actually pretty busy over the summer months. They've got to stay on the ground. They've got to go to public events. They've got to make appearances, do their things. I mean, some of them just kind of mail it in, but a lot of them really work quite hard through those months too. Now, whether they're working on anything that actually benefits us, well, that's a whole separate discussion altogether, isn't it? But, the legislatures do have to break now and then. I mean, one of the things is kind of good. When they aren't sitting, there's less chance that they can do much more damage to us. So they tend to find ways. Let's see, a log 74. Question is, Carney just joined the EU without the rest of the provinces voting on another $250 billion pact. Yeah, I know there's a big spending thing through NATO, and Carney certainly has a big interest in Europe over North America in a lot of ways. He seems to be wanting to pull us tighter over there. But no, we haven't informally or formally joined the EU yet, but he really is pushing in that direction, isn't he? And well, there's a lot of good things and bad things with the European Union, I guess. For the most part, I don't want them. I mean, we're working hard enough to break out of the Federation, or at least I am. Why would I want to get mixed up in yet another group of countries across a big pond to make it even all the more complicated? All right, well, let's get on to my guest here. I got in studio Mike Thomas. You've read a lot of his stuff in the Western Standard, and we've got him here. How's it going, Mike?
Pretty good. Cory, how are you doing?
Good. I like summer. So I'm actually, as far as I go with my grumpiness, I'm in a good mood right now.
Given the weather we've had the last couple of days, it's actually warm out there today.
Yeah, well, for people, I think it's been ideal weather, that low to mid 20-degree area.
Yep.
I like it at 30 and above, but
yeah, me too.
Jane disagrees vehemently with that. But all the same, this is good weather.
Well, next time you go to Arizona, leave her at home.
I can get myself in crap. I don't need help.
You don't need me.
Right on. Well, again, I appreciate you coming in. So, just reminding everybody, we're coming into a municipal election year. And
October 20th.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we should be paying attention to these things all the time, but we don't. And, this, for the next few months really should be the time people should be kind of scrutinizing those candidates.
Well, Stampede Week is usually when the elections really hit the streets, so to speak, because there's there's so many receptions, and the candidates and the wannabes are at every single one of them. And then they disappear totally in August for the most part, because council doesn't sit in August, take the month off. But the shift in council will hit the fan on Labor Day. That weekend is just boom, away they go.
Yeah. It's just full bore campaign time after that.
Yeah.
So something, I mean, a recent piece of yours, and you got a lot of them, but just one that caught my eye because it's a pet peeve of mine. I've been watching those poor businesses in Marta Loop. For people not familiar with it, it was a nice little neighborhood. It was a little corner of kind of older city, but it had businesses around, nice little houses. And they have taken it upon themselves to rebuild it, and they have destroyed that area.
Well, and I mean, Marta Loop is not that far from where they messed up Viscount Bennett High School.
That's another.
But the city's on this rampage of densification that I'm convinced it's because of federal money. They signed an agreement with the Housing Accelerator Fund that I've gone through and looked at, and Calgary got $228 million in the agreement, plus bonus money for every multifamily building permit it issues. So they got, I think it was something like $22 million in bonuses a couple of weeks ago. So and the same thing in Edmonton, the same deal going on out there. So they're just indiscriminately putting up multifamily housing. I mean, we need housing. That's clear about that. But to do what they've done in Marta Loop is atrocious. It doesn't need to be done there. But the planners have it in their heads that there's these things called main streets, and 33rd Avenue, which runs from, if you're familiar with Calgary, 14th Street west to Crowchild Trail, is a very heavily traveled
There's
route.
not many roads that go across Crowchild, so you have to use that.
Yeah. And so their dictum, for lack of a better word, is that they just want to densify the hell out of those main streets, and they do not take into account what I'm trying to say is they don't care what neighborhood it's in, is what I'm trying to say. And Marta Loop is like you said, was a heritage. I've been born and raised in Calgary. I used to hang around there. I went to Viscount Bennett High School, so I'm very familiar with the area, and it was a really cool, neat neighborhood.
Nice character.
Yes,
it
did.
Was a place, if you want to do an in-city day trip, you could go down there, check out Casablanca Video or some of the other
all those places. The old the theater. I remember going to the Marta Theater to see movies there. But so they got to clean up Marta Loop, they said. But what they're really doing is they're putting infrastructure in that'll handle 26-story apartment buildings. And that takes a lot of work, and that's very old infrastructure in there. Obviously, I don't think it's been changed since 1950. I don't know, but they just messed it up so badly, and it's now going to take 18 months longer than what they said it would take, because they get down there and they go, boy, this is a big mess. And so I know people are saying, well, how come it takes so long? Is it any different in Calgary in terms of other projects? I don't know. I'm not an expert at construction. I'm just expert at criticizing.
Yeah, well, but that's part of what I wanted to get into, though. I mean, can Calgary get anything done in decent timelines? Because the issue with Marta Loop wasn't just the construction. They started over 2 years ago.
Yep.
They've ripped up this 3-block area of streets. These businesses are going broke because people are avoiding the area like the plague, and they still aren't done. And I've been out there recently. I have to drive the city all the time. It's not that different. They widened the sidewalks a little, put in some planters. I'm guessing it's underground utilities.
It's all the underground stuff that's.
But how can they take so long?
Well, I don't know if they take longer in Calgary than say they would do longer than in Edmonton.
It's a municipal problem altogether.
Yeah. So I mean, certainly it's not the people working at street level are not to blame for this. Mm-hmm. I mean, the story I wrote when the guy from Diner Deluxe, Vince, said that he was getting more information from the guys digging the holes than he was from City Hall. And therein, I think, lies the problem, because it's not necessarily, I mean, you're going to run into problems if you're digging that deep into old infrastructure. You're just going to have it. You don't really know what's there till you get there. So I'll give you that. But communication is the problem. the city of Calgary is just terrible at communications. They seem to think, and I sit through all kinds of different things. I've talked to a bunch of the people involved in all these new developments who said that the city hosted these events to get input and stuff like that. And everybody I talked to says that they didn't listen. Yeah. They lectured, they don't listen.
They go through the motions.
Yeah, they go through the motions, and then they go back to City Hall, and a report came out. I can't remember if it was yesterday or last week, about what a great job the city does in interacting with Calgarians, and it's total bull. And so I think probably if they had a Marda Loop marshal for the city, who went around the neighborhood every Monday morning, the Monday morning marshal.
There you go.
I like that.
You should get that kind of position.
I'm going to write that down. And just say, look, we've run into a problem over here, and it's going to take a little bit longer, but they're not doing that. But if you tell people, look, it's going to take a little bit longer. Sorry about that. How can what can we do to help you or whatever? Yeah. People go, oh, okay, at least you're telling me. And that's the big problem, is they don't communicate it.
So this, I mean, as much as it's a big project for the people down there, this is a drop in the bucket compared to, I'm going to bring up the monster, the Green Line, because that's going to be coming up in this election a lot. That monster has been going on for years now. It's an LRT expansion project that keeps growing in size and then shrinking, but the budget just keeps exploding, and they haven't laid a mile of track yet.
No. There's a groundbreaking ceremony tomorrow.
Yeah, well, if they move at the speed they did with Marda Loop, my great-grandchildren won't see this thing completely.
No, they won't. I don't know what the timeline is on that. I've written quite a bit about it, and I haven't seen that because they haven't decided. I only decided a little while ago that when they're going to start building the thing. But the difference there, I think, initially anyway, is it's really not heavily populated where this thing is going. And there's no deep...
it's cutting through a bunch of light industrial and
so I think it'll go quickly by city standards. So whatever,
because you got bigger properties and some of them aren't. There's some.
But no, it's easily. I think it's at least 5 years away. I'm not sure. And I'm not a big fan of the Green Line. I don't know. I don't know why they did that. I really don't understand it.
Well, so getting on, I'll get more into your specialty, as you've written on for decades, real estate, housing. It's again going to be an issue. The blanket rezoning, the candidates for mayor and council are already shooting at each other over the blanket rezoning and such. Where do you think, hopefully, this campaign will go to work towards maybe a better council and mayor for a little while?
Well, in terms of whether or not they're going to be able to repeal the blanket zoning, I don't know. What do you do? How do you compensate people who have now, a 16-unit condo or row house next door to your single-family home? I mean, they should quit it. But again, it goes back to the Housing Accelerator Fund, because it's all multifamily homes that come under that blanket zoning, and the city gets bonus money for permits issued. They get bonus money for multifamily anywhere in the city, but including in there. And that was part of it's in the agreement. I've read it. It says no multifamily, no changing the zoning, no money.
Well, it's one of those areas in a sense that the federal government is really indirectly, but still directly meddling in municipal affairs, because they dangle the money. And they'll play that. I mean, if the city doesn't utilize those dollars, the other politicians will say, well, look at that. They left money on the table. They're throwing away the federal dollars that were handed out to you. It's an ugly political game they play.
Well, it is. The money, the taxpayers' money, that's because
it's still all ours, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, because Edmonton bought into it as well. And now on Monday at Edmonton City Council, there is a petition or a motion going forward to adjust their blanket upzoning so that they can't put big 16-unit row houses in the middle of the street. If they want them, you got to put them on the corner, which is it's a concession to single family people. if the homes, the row houses, if they're on the corner, then the people probably aren't parking in the middle of the street. Because I mean, all the issues that go with that is incredible. So whether or not that, I think it's going to get passed because you mentioned the election, the whole thing about the three of the mayoral candidates announced this week they were going to repeal it if they were reelected, which leaves two people who haven't mentioned it, and one of them is Jody Gondek, who wouldn't even give a thought to repealing it.
No, and Thiessen's probably the other one.
Thiessen's the other one, and I don't. He wouldn't either. He's a old civil servant who, So, what's going to happen with it? I don't know. Can they repeal it? I don't know. What are the ramifications? I mean, but it's interesting that they're all making it an election issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's part of it. Now that it's already been in, I mean, people have to look at what happens. Well, if there's companies have already invested or started the planning or purchased properties, the city could be very liable if they get rug pulled.
Well, no, or they won't be able to cancel any permits that have been issued.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
okay, yeah.
You know, the gears that are already in motion.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's another thing. They're talking about using this thing to solve our housing crisis. We don't have a housing crisis in Calgary. We have an affordability crisis in Calgary. We've got there are more active listings on the Calgary Real Estate Board website right now than there have been in 3 or 4 years. Like, people are listing their houses, they're selling them, they want to get out of them, so that puts product on the market. But what we don't have is enough non-market housing, and all of this stuff that's being built under the blanket zoning bylaw. None of it is market housing. There's no stipulation in there for somebody to go in there and say, okay, I want a permit for this row house for 16 units. They go, yeah, here you go. But they don't say, oh, no, wait, you got 16, 4 of them have to be non-market, which would just make it even a bigger problem for them. But that's the issue with me, is that they're none of this stuff that they're building under that bylaw is affordable housing. I mean, if you go into, let's say, Mount Royal and knock down a $2 million house that you want to put row homes in there, what do you think those are going to sell for? Yeah. You know,
well, that's like the infills in the inner city.
Yep.
Before I left Calgary, it was 12 years ago, and I lived in Highland Park, an older area. A lot of the infills were going in, and some neighbors did that in the corner, tore down the house, put up a big giant gray duplex, and they sold for $600,000 each. Half a duplex for $600,000 in an area where you could buy a whole house for $400,000 at that time.
Well, if
you're not making things more affordable,
you just go a couple of blocks south here into Lower Mount Royal, and it's a mess like that. Yeah. It's an absolute disaster area.
Well, I mean, there's lots to cover, and housing is your beat, but still, in general, so is civic. And I wanted to bring you in, kicking off this season, because we really need people to be watching your stories. They're going to be important in this next few months. What do you see, or what are you anticipating covering in this election as it starts ramping up?
Well, the stages are being set. There are going to be a minimum of 6 new faces on council, because I've got a list here of the people who've said they're not running, and a question mark with Sean Chu. I'm not sure, so that could make it 7, but.
I don't think Sean could win if he wanted to be honest.
I don't know.
It's weird.
I'm not going to wager on anybody.
Yeah, I understand.
But if you look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them voted for blanket upzoning, and now all of a sudden they're not running. So now, whether or not that's got anything to do with it, I don't know. I'd like to think so. That they learned their lesson and they're getting
off the voters, and they're getting the heck out before they get kicked.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a minimum of 6, maybe 7 new faces to run for council. We got 5 people running for mayor. I don't think there'll be any more. There might be a couple of councillors yet to throw their hat into the ring. I don't know. I think that it's going to be, I say this every year, the most important election in Calgary's history. Mm-hmm. But this one is the warring. I mean, it's a split council. It is so divided. It isn't funny. I mean, I was in council yesterday watching them talk about there were a notice of motion came in about, is the city of Calgary infringing on responsibilities that are the Alberta government or the federal government? And it was brought to council by Sonia Sharp, who is running for mayor. And there's this great big argument going on in this split council. No, we have to do everything we possibly can, regardless of whose responsibility it is. And that was the pro blanket zoning people.
The self-important ones who think that the city should be a city state almost.
They don't. I don't think they think of themselves as counselors first. That's their second job. Their first job is to manipulate and do whatever they can to get people to live the way they want them to live.
Social engineering.
Yeah, social engineering, the DEI stuff, all of that stuff. There's two guys on council that are really bad at that, and that's Cory and Walcott, both of whom are bailing.
Yeah.
So those seats are open. Where I'm going with this, I think, is that traditionally turnout in the civic election in Calgary is terrible. I think it's like 16 or 20% or something like that. So you get what you don't ask for if you don't go in there and tell them, I'm voting for you. A big turnout will shake this council up. It didn't shake them up when they had the big public hearing because they had all that money from the Liberals behind them. But I think I hope Calgarians are more aware of what's going on because of the nature of this current council, which has done so many stupid things. So maybe, I don't know. And that's the big issue, is get off your duff and make a plan to check out all of the people who are running and check them out really well in terms of the type of person you want to have in the government. And don't just read their election literature.
Yeah.
I mean, find out what job did they have before this, or what job do they have now that they're prepared to leave to go to council. Where they've worked in the past can tell you a lot more about them than I promised to a peach in every pond, so.
Well, we only get one crack at it every 4 years. So if there's any time they're actually going to listen to you, it's this next 5 months, because they're all trying to win the job. So, I mean, it's kind of, as you say, it's on you to get off your butt, then pay attention and make a good choice, because you're stuck with them for 4 years after that.
Yep.
Well, we'll be covering it, and you'll be covering it, and informing people as much as you can before the election date comes. So.
Well, there's, I'm a little annoyed that they're not going to be in council in August, because we'll have nothing to bitch about.
Oh, I'm sure there's always something to bitch about. We always can find something to go bitch about. But have you got anything in the cooker for your next article coming up?
I got a couple things, but I don't want to blow them out right now, because I got some reports from the city that look a little silly that I have to.
Well, that's unusual.
Well, and it goes back to the blanket zoning and how proud they are that they've issued a record amount of building permits in the last couple of years. The Calgary home builders have been leading the country with home building, and the city's taking all the credit, and which is really silly, because the population growth in Calgary has been 90,000, 100,000 people coming here from Ontario and BC, and they've got people coming from BC and Ontario where the average housing is $1 million. That's the average price. So they're bringing big bucks here, and they're just buying brand new houses. Yeah. And so the builders are going in, and the city's going, good for us. Just a minute.
They love to pat themselves on their back.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in to talk.
Thank you, Cory.
Good to see you. And,
anytime.
Looking forward to the stories in the months to come.
Great. I'll look after you then.
Right. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Take care.
Yes, Mike Thomas. It's been a while since he's been on. Overdue. And yes, covering the municipal beat. He sits through those god-awful city council meetings and reads those ever-dull reports, so you don't have to, because there is a lot of important stuff in both. But, it's got to be summarized for a lot of us to digest and make our choices. But this is the year for Edmonton, Calgary. I'm in a rural area. I got a local councillor, and we have a Reeve. And she's been all right. I'm not going to complain about her, but she gets acclaimed every time. Like they don't even have people running against them. Once they're an incumbent, they realize you just can't knock off an incumbent, so people don't even run against them. We really, really overlook our municipal level of government. They tax the heck out of you. They impact your life on so many levels. As Mike said, you can see the frustration in them. It's one of the dismal turnouts. These guys, they bleed you dry and they regulate the crap out of you. You should get up once every 4 years and get out and vote. And I know it gets frustrating. You say, well, you vote, you put them in, it turns out they lied and they didn't do any of the things they said they promised. And yeah, that happens. But that means you got to go out the second time and fire them. See, part of the problem with, many of the problems, but with municipal governments, again, is that they get in. Once they're in, that incumbent is in there. It is difficult to dislodge them and get them out. So they take it for granted that we won't trouble ourselves to fire them. The thing with democracy that people don't like, and it's a right-left thing, it's a complacency thing, it's apathy. It puts the responsibility on us. We have to take part in it. And we don't like to. We make excuses not to. The people say my vote doesn't count, my vote doesn't matter. Well, not if you don't bother. No, it doesn't. And they say, oh, I'll vote, I get the same thing. True. Well, then fire them. The next one does it again, fire them again. I promise you, a lot of politicians actually want to get the job for more than 4 years. But if they know that you won't get rid of them if they fed you a bunch of crap, well, then they're not going to change anything. And that's whether it's Edmonton, Calgary, but we got the whole province going into a race. And as dull as it sounds, something that's different this time in Alberta is that we got the party system going on. We got a number of parties. I think they've been having some challenges. I had the fellow from Alberta Calgary come on and talk about things, but it is the first time parties have been in. I got a feeling, not even a feeling, it's clear they need a little more time to flesh out and get the feel of this system altogether and become more functional. So the parties are a part of this election. I think they're going to be a bigger part of elections down the road, but right now they're kind of in a bit of disarray and trying to establish themselves, and most people can't name them, so they don't know who's doing what. Let's see here, some of this stuff going on. Dave covered a lot of this, stole my thunder on a bunch of things. Here's an interesting one, speaking of cover-ups and things that come out in federal government, is the Business Development Bank invokes solicitor-client privilege in censoring all records regarding executive donations to the Liberal Party. Yeah, so basically senior people with government-funded agency are donating money back to the party members in the government. I mean, it's money laundering, basically, guys. And now they've just invoked solicitor-client privilege to say, we will never tell you how much money we gave. It sounds like the bank's chair was also the financial agent for Transport Minister Chrystia Freeland, who used to be finance minister. Boy, it's an inbred, ugly sort of thing. I see some questions in the debate going on. Yes, whether I'm a farmer, beekeeper. I call it flying livestock. Yes, I keep bees, and I did own a pub. But a question asked whether I support independence. Yes, I've been very open about that. If there's a referendum, I'm voting yes. I want the referendum. I want a yes/no vote. That's how we got to keep it clear. That's how we have to do it. And when the time comes, I'm going to vote yes. Now, whether or not enough Albertans actually vote yes at that time, we got a long ways to go. We got to get a lot of realism back into this movement. There's a lot of confirmation bias on our own part, thinking there's a heck of a lot more support there than there is. And it's there, it's growing, it's stronger than it's ever been, but we have not nearly cultivated and expanded it to the point of well past 50% that we need. And that's where I got annoyed with the oxygen that went towards this weird Republican Party thing that didn't bring us any closer to it than where we had been. And there's some people pushing, thinking that, that the UCP and Premier Smith should take on a full-out independent stance. Now, I don't agree with that for a couple of reasons. One of which is just they weren't elected on that. That was not what they campaigned on. That's a big, huge, personal sort of decision for every person to make, which is why I think it's too important for the parties to make. That's why it should go to referendum rather than to a party. But a party shouldn't take that kind of stance without actually having gone to the voters on it. It's not something that big. As well, as I said, the support is not strong enough for independence yet to do that. If the UCP took on a full independence stance as a party, Nenshi would become the next premier. Simple as that. There would be no winning in the next election because it's just not there yet. It's not the place for a party. This is a question that should go to Albertans. And what the UCP has done has given us the ability, which is perfect. They've given us the means to start a referendum, to campaign and hold it, and let Albertans decide. They shouldn't need to do any more than that. Now, Smith has started this Alberta Next thing, which I'm not so thrilled about. I mean, it keeps things in the discussion. Fine. But it sounds a lot like Jason Kenney's Fair Deal panel. What I see from a lot of politicians is they take things and they kick them down the road. So let's have a whole bunch of hearings and then never actually do anything about it. The Fair Deal panel came up with things like talking about a pension plan, talking about a police force. That stuff was done, 7 years ago, 8 years ago? None of this is here yet. So why do we need another, Alberta Next thing to come up and talk some more? I'm tired of listening to gums flap. I want to see some action. And there has been some. Maybe a bit fair. One of the discussions, one of the things Smith was talking about, was the police force thing. Well, let's, boy, they must be constructing new housing somewhere nearby. I'm not sure if that's coming through to you guys. She's been taking an incremental approach, which has been interesting with that. And, we're seeing municipalities, Grand Prairie, others, where they took on municipal forces and got rid of the RCMP coverage. And we're seeing more sheriffs, Alberta sheriffs moving in. So I think they're basically just squeezing the RCMP out rather than making one big blanket change. You know what? Different paths to the same end. I'm fine with that. I mean, as long as it gets the job done. But it's going to take a while. The pension plan, I think the provincial government blew it. They didn't sell it well. And now the report came out recently, and it didn't look good for them that the government sat on, because they did a whole big survey on Albertans with the Alberta pension plan idea, and their own survey found at that time, and I think it's changed since then, but still at that time, about 63% of Albertans didn't want to go to an Alberta pension plan, which means they sold it badly, because we, like with so many other things federally, we get robbed on the pension plan. We get a raw deal on it. We get a bad deal on it. And selling the better deal of an Alberta pension should be a thing we can do if you do it right, but they didn't. And now we're paying for that because we should be well on our way towards one. They obviously haven't given up on the plan. And I think that's a bit of what they're going to throw onto this. Part of what these hearings or whatever you want to call it, town halls that are going to be traveling around and doing that, the thing that Smith's getting into with this Alberta Next, they're going to be talking about the pension plan. They're going to be talking about putting other things to a referendum question as well as independence. Independence that would probably have to come citizens initiated. Okay, fine. But they might put some other things on the ballot that they're going to get out of this hearing. So there might be a pension question on there as well as an independence question. I'm not sure yet if that's a good or a bad thing for the independence movement, to be honest. It causes some distraction, but it moves in the right direction. And I like direct democracy. I like the idea of having more citizens voting directly on some of the bigger policies rather than leaving it just to the politicians themselves. But we'll see. Speaking of spending and some of the other talk, news that's breaking. I'm kind of, running out of time to hit them all. But yeah, NATO and Canada, now Carney's promised to spend 5% of GDP on defense by 2035. Now, Canada has been riding the coattails of other countries for decades and spent, 1.6% of our GDP on defense. I mean, we wouldn't even get to 2% as we're supposed to. Now he's making the leap all the way to 5%. Might be a good thing, I guess. It shows us paying our bills on the international front. But boy, he's not wasting time. What I get worried about is where's the money going to come from? I think getting up to 2 would be good. It was good. Maybe 5 is good. I'll leave the jury out on that. But I worry. He sure is spending and spending and spending. Where is he going to get the money? I worry about another national energy program. All right, before I get going, there's going to be, speaking of the UCP and things, he was on last week, the guest, Eric Bouchard. He's the MLA for Fish Creek, Calgary, UCP MLA. He's got a sovereignty town hall tonight that's being held. It's called The Courage to Listen. I think it's at thecouragetolisten.ca. I don't know if they have tickets left or not, but I'm going to drop by and check that out and listen to it. There's a lot of interesting speakers and stuff going on in Calgary, so I'll be out there in the audience. I'm not speaking at one of these things for a change. And hey, Albertans Day is going to be in Mirror, Alberta at Chris Scott's Whistle Stop Cafe. I'm going to be set up out there as well, actually. I'm looking forward to it. Always good food there. Great people. Very interesting. Tamara Leach is going to be playing. And Christine Anderson's going to be speaking there of all things. So if you're looking for something to do in Alberta and Central Alberta, Mirror Alberta, the Whistle Stop Cafe, I'll see you there if I can. Pipeline's going to be on tonight, and Nigel with his other shows, I think, coming on Friday. Just keep watching on all our channels, guys. Lots more to cover. We'll be carrying on throughout this summer to make sure you're up to date on the news. So thanks for tuning in today, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.